What's going on, guys? In this video, I'll show you how to take your Hammond collection Raptors to the next level by using the Raptor mod kits made by Rod's Random Work and Gary Syrett from Syrett Tech. A big thanks to those guys for sending over these sample kits for me to mess around with. If you're interested in grabbing a set or two or three to outfit your JP Clever Girls with a more accurate head sculpt and proportionate feet, I will drop a link to the Etsy store where you can buy them. With all of that said, let's go ahead and get started. So the first step is dismantling the figure and taking the parts off that we no longer need. This is pretty straightforward if you've done it before or if you've watched me do it. We just need to remove the derpy head and the clown feet, and to do that you just need to heat up the plastic a little bit with either a heat gun, a hair dryer, or just some good old-fashioned boiling water. Let it soak in there for about 60 seconds until the plastic gets nice and soft, and then you can just pop the head and feet right off. Once you get the old parts off, you just need to pop the new ones on, and this is where you have to be very careful installing these new parts. The 3D printed parts won't just pop on, so don't try forcing it or you will break something. The best way that I found to get the parts on is to dip them in some warm water, and I can't stress this enough to you that the water can't be boiling hot. You just want it warm enough to soften up the resin just a little bit, and then you can pop the parts onto the plastic pegs on the figure. So there is an articulated lower jaw, but before we pop that on, we need to paint the upper and lower mouthpieces first. They are printed in an ivory colored resin, so you won't need to paint the teeth. You'll just need to paint the gum line, the roof of the mouth, and the tongue area. For that, any kind of flesh tone will work. Just go in carefully with a fine tip brush and apply a couple of thin coats. Once the mouthpieces are painted, we need to lock them in place with some super glue. So just get some super glue and coat the upper and lower headpieces, and then place the mouth sections in there and gently press them down to lock them into place. And once all the super glue is cured, you can then take the lower jaw and attach it, and that is pretty much it for the installation portion of this video. Next up, we'll focus on throwing down a little paint on this girl to help blend these parts together. So in terms of deco, I'm just going to keep it simple for the sake of this video and play off the factory plastic and colors. So I'm not going to go for any sort of hyper detailed movie accurate paint job. And fortunately, to make it easier on everybody, Gary printed the parts in the base color that the Raptor is molded in. So all we need to do is a little dry brushing and a few details here and there. So I'm going to go in first with a light dry brushing of leather brown and matte black. I'll mix those two together to make a dark brown, and then I'll do a few light dry brush passes over the raised areas, and I'll continue that dry brushing down the rest of the figure just to help that transition blend together. For the underside, I'm just going to be messing around with these three colors to try and get a color that's relatively close to the factory paint. Now, if you want just a solid color that you could play off of, maybe like a khaki mixed with a little yellow ochre or something like that, just kind of play around with the mixes until you find something that works for you. But I'm going to take these three, thin them down, and I'll apply a few thin coats on the lower jaw and the neck section. And then just like I did with the dark brown on the top of the body, I'll just dry brush that color over the top of the factory paint to blend it all together. This helps to not have to go crazy, trying to color match it perfectly. And normally I would just airbrush the underside, and I still may go back over them and do that later. But for the sake of this video, I'll just do it all by hand just to show you how simple it is to do it with just a brush. Next up are the eyes, and with something this small, I find that keeping it simple is going to be the best route. So I'll be mixing jungle green with some gold paint as the main eye color. I like to use this combo for the JP Raptors because that hint of gold gives them a slight greenish glow when the light hits them just right. The key to getting really clean eyes is to apply very thin layers and build up that color over 2 to 3, 4 coats, however many you need to really get it to pop. And you do it that way your eyes end up being nice and smooth, and you don't have dried brush strokes in the finish or anything like that. And once the eyes are done, you can try your hardest to get 2 black slits applied evenly on both sides. This is definitely a hold your breath moment for sure. It's always difficult getting eyes symmetrical on there, especially these little tiny slits, but just try your best. The last thing we need to do to finish up this Raptor is paint the claws, and for that I'm using the same brown black mixture I used on the dry brushing, and I'll just go in with a brush and paint the claws in. Pretty straightforward there. A little tip, when you're done painting the claws and the paint has dried, I recommend sealing the claws with some brush on super glue. That way you don't lose any paint when you're messing around with it or posing it or doing anything like that. The super glue is really strong and it really prolongs the life of your claw paint. So 2 out of the 3 of my clever girls are done. I still need to finish that third one, but I will tackle that off camera when I wrap up this video. Again, a big thank you to Rod and Gary for sending over these Raptor kits. It really takes what I felt was the weakest dinosaur out of the Hammond collection line, and it really turned it into what I always pictured a JP Raptor figure looking like. If you want to grab a set, the links will be down below to the Etsy store where you can purchase them, as well as links to Rod and Syrett Tech's social media accounts. I recommend giving them a follow so you can stay up to date on when new products and restocks drop. If you need more Jurassic related content from yours truly, you know where to find me. Links will be in the description box below. You guys take care, and I'll see you around the compound.